it is, yeah, it's about the same. Cookie cutter size trout as the last couple. Just barely hooked. Again, a nice little trout. They fight really hard. They're just little. There's the odd bigger one in this lake, but that's about as big as they get. And I think I am going to teach y'all what you need for trout fishing. Okay, to start today's video off, I think we're going to go with location and time of year, and then we will move into tackle, and then accessories, and then I think to finish off, we will deal with the rods. Okay, so for the location, I usually like to stick to points or... Sorry, there's a fish on the screen here. Main lake points or flats and weed beds, transitions, anything like that. They're all really good spots for these trout. If we're talking stock trout, I always will find a point on the lake, 2 points on the lake, because 2 nice main points is usually where the trout will cruise to, I find, at least in my area. I find they will... if you set up on a point, they'll cruise from point A to point B just all day, just looking for food. So I like that. And generally, early ice is better for trout. It seems, to me at least, that they slow down once it starts to hit like January, February area. But like November, if we get like a really early ice, or December is like the best times, right up until Christmas. And then I find... New Year's, and then everything starts to slow down. Not catching as many fish, not getting as many bites, not seeing as many fish on the graph. The fish are just reluctant to eat. Usually it can flip-flop between good and bad, but predominantly I'd say that early ice is much better. Okay, let's talk accessories such as the ice tent that I'm in and the sonar that I'm using. These are not, or electric auger as well for the holes and everything. These are not necessary by any means, but if it does get cold around where you fish, the tent can help a lot. It's still fairly cold in here. If you want to get a heater, that's another thing too. It's still fairly cold in here, but it's kind of keeping me away from this, like the breeze that there is, and that will make you very cold. And it's also kind of trapping a little bit of like my body heat in here, so it is a little bit warmer than the outside, a little bit better for your fingers and whatnot. The electric auger is very, very nice to have. You don't have to worry about your hands getting cold when you're drilling, and it just cuts through the ice instantly. You just charge the battery, which I've got in my pocket. I usually charge it overnight, and then it's good for forever. These lithium batteries are great. Sorry, another fish. The lithium batteries are great. As long as you keep them like in your pocket, keep them warm when it's cold out like this. The battery for the sonar is a lead one, and that one is pretty good. Overall, you don't really have to keep it warm or whatever. It holds its charge really well. But I'm not as worried about damaging that battery because it's like a cheap battery. Okay, moving on to the sonar. The sonar is very, very helpful for finding out the depth and where the fish are at, because these trout, it's generally clear water, so they will come up from quite a ways away, so you don't exactly have to knock them on the head, but you can see where they're coming up from, if they're coming up from the top or the bottom. The bottom or the top, so you can catch a little bit more fish if only some of the fish are willing to come up to you. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it for accessories. They're not necessary, but they do help. Like I have friends that'll just fish. Literally, they have like an old hand auger and like a spool line, and that's how they fish. Yeah, I prefer the... Okay, moving on to tackle. I keep things pretty simple here. I don't use all of these. I just have them in case, right? So the majority of my fishing is done with spoons. I like the frostbite spoons. I like the medium size, and if the bite is really finicky, the small size, I got this one in the tungsten because it's a little harder to fish the smaller spoons in deeper water with the regular size, or sorry, the brass model. But these are all the regular lighter models. They do flutter a bit more. That's why I prefer to use that. But if I have to, the tungsten, it works really well. Okay, moving on, we've got jigs, little tungsten jigs. Other jigs, I usually just put worms on these ones. I don't really put plastics on these ones. Again, worms are about the best bait you can get overall for putting on jigs and whatnot. And the trout will almost always bite, and if they're not biting worms, you know it's not going to be a very good day. Okay, so we have these other jigs that I use to rig my plastics. I very rarely use these curly tails or tubes, but sometimes I will use these if they're really on like a little bug bite and I don't have any of my flies. Another good thing to have on hand is just regular hooks. I like these mustad ones that are orange because I feel like they draw the fish to the worm or the maggot or whatever you're using. I prefer just putting this, and about 10 inches above putting a little weight, and then dropping it down and putting it on the hook setter that I made. But I will just dead stick this if the rules allow at that lake. Just right beside me. They're nice and sharp. You don't have to worry about the fish getting off once you hook them, and they're nice for that. Okay, moving on, I have some bigger plastics here, and the smaller versions of the Dragon Slayers too. But this I use for, this is where the big trout come into play. If you're really trying to target big trout, this works great. Also, rattle baits work great. My personal best 6-pounder came on this rattle bait. That was open water, but the fish still love them through the ice too. Those are great. You can also get them in smaller sizes that work good for the regular, your average, like stalker trout. And then I just have some miscellaneous weights and whatnot. But generally, you can keep it pretty simple. If you just had to, like if I had to pick 2 lures, it would be a spoon and a jig. The jig for finesse situations, and the spoon for pretty much everything else. About any size of trout will bite these medium-sized spoons, I've found. Oh, there. Fish on the jig. This trout just will not leave me alone to film my video. Okay, again on the jig, nice little trout, and powerful release, keep him nice and healthy. Okay, after a short intermission, I will be back. Okay, I'm back. I just put a new piece of worm on there and got it reset. A towel is a very handy tool for ice fishing so your hands don't get cold. Alright, worms are the bait of choice. Always never leave homes without your worms. And in summary of the tackle segment of this video, pretty much all you need for your average stock trout fishing is tungsten jigs and some miscellaneous little spoons in various colors. I prefer bright. Alright, moving on to the rods. You can have rods like this, like a nice custom ice rod. This is a 36-inch light frostbite rod. This is an amazing rod if you have the money to pay for it. But if you don't, there's great budget options like this 13 Fishing Heat Wave, which is perfect for most trout applications and perch if you're going to do that. And then there's this rod, which I used for forever, which was my main rod. It's a 28-inch medium. It's a fairly light medium, but it works great for jigs because it has the extra backbone. Length on the rods. I prefer a longer rod for most usages except sight fishing, which is where those rods come in. Just because you have a little bit more action to play the rod with, or play the fish with, and keeps them pinned better, in my opinion. But if you have a small shack, not great, obviously. Yeah, and for line on the rods, my main go-to is 6 to 4 or 6 to 6, but sometimes I will go 8 to 6 with a fluoro leader. Fluoro's over there. Just because we fish around bigger fish sometimes. That's about it. Oh, sorry, for bait you can also use corn up there. Okay, that's about it on the things you might need or want. Now let's get to some fishing. I like to fish mid-column. My preferred depth is like 15 to 20 feet. But for bigger fish, I usually fish a little bit shallower, in like 10 feet. If the fish are there, they're there. If they're not, they're not. But most of the time on any lake, you can always find some trout mid-column on point or flat. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Let's get to some fishing here. Got him. Oh, holy. One of my favorite parts about the tungsten jig is you can just pop it right out. Nice little trout again. There we go. That's what we like to see. I think the tungsten jig has been doing the best today, but I've also I think I put more time, a little bit more time in on the spoon, and the jig with a piece of worm is still out fishing it. Damn, the floor is dirty in here. The ice floor. Another trout. Imagine that. Tungsten jig again with a piece of worm. Probably one of the most deadly lures aside from the spoon. Oh, damn. I hope you guys saw that rod load up right there. Oh, Lord. Okay, then. Again, tungsten jig. I think I might have monkeyed around with that one a little too long. I'm gonna get re-rigged to get back down there and hopefully get one more, cause and then dip out of here, because my hands are they're starting to get cold. The no heater thing is all good until it's freezing cold out and you just caught a whole bunch of fish and your hands are dying, but whatever. Got him. There we go. Oh, there we go. I'm down. Okay, we're just gonna give him a quick dunk and show you guys. Nice little rainbow. He's kind of purple. I like it. I like the look of the ones in this lake. Quick release.